So this is going to be a discussion where we just kind of get to talk about what's happened in the story so far and as such. First, we'll start off with my generic, just overall recap of the story, then we'll jump into the questions you guys drew up to kind of help refresh everybody's minds. Let me get this pulled away. And that's right there. Okay. So, the story all began with you guys all meeting at a tavern. You had a run-in with a older-looking gentleman named Prometheus, who entrusted a special egg into Orbweeb's care because he was worried that somebody was coming after him. Shortly after, this tavern was attacked, where you three were able to escape, and a certain dragonborn that you guys had a run-in with recently burnt down the entire tavern and disappeared in the fire, soon to see you guys again. Eventually you made your way to a place called the Waterfall Citadel. And the Waterfall Citadel is like the travel hub for the entire realm. It's the epicenter for all of the transactions, the traveling between merchants, trade, all that stuff. It is also the only way to get to the high royalty part of the realm where the king supposedly resides along with his royal family. You guys got there. You had to acquire some world passes in order to travel to the Dragonborn village to the west, because you had to get through a gate to get there. You tried without passes first, where you were quickly jailed for a day, where you were soon broken out by a rogue Aarakocra by the name of O'Flanagan. O'Flanagan broke you guys out, and since that point, you guys kind of band together. You trusted him with important info on why you needed the world passes. You told him you had a special cargo, but you didn't tell him what it was, and he figured he might as well join him for the ride in the meantime. You guys were able to kind of get inside this very wealthy, rich event where a lot of the wealthy benefactors of the Waterfall Citadel kind of attend a morbid, Colosseum fight scene where a certain band of people by the name of the Night Ventures gather poor people and they bring them in and they pawn them off to these rich guys to make them fight in 1v1 type Colosseum matches where they fight to the death. The rich benefactors get to bet money. They wear fancy masks and outfits to kind of remain anonymous. That way nobody can figure out what's going on with these rich guys who they're tied to. Their identities stay safe, to make it short. During this event, you guys acquired some world passes. You witnessed a vampire kill a lady, and he was able to cloak and vanish rather quickly. You have not seen him since. Shortly after, you met a man by the name of Roderick, who was the leader of the Ortega squad, one of the squads in charge of the Waterfall Citadel, who happened to know O'Flanagan but is not his greatest fan. You also met the champion fighter for this event by the name Gally, who actually shocked you by how respectful and nice he truly was. You have not seen him since. Shortly after, you guys talked to an old man, you got a flower, or you got a quest to get a flower to help his wife. You went to go get that flower, got jumped by a bunch of goblins, defeated those goblins, acquired a new party pet by the name of Steve, the cat. You guys returned the flower back to the old man, who seemed to be somewhat like he was being watched by something or someone. Eventually, he seemingly against his will turned into this giant armored knight who attacked you guys throughout the Waterfall Citadel, along with a bunch of other strange beings that you've never seen before who were also after you. It quickly became known that they seemed to be after Corwin for unknown reasons, and they could sense the egg in Orweeb's possession. They chased you out throughout this Waterfall Citadel, but they were not able to catch you. When you reached the western gates and finally got out, you were confronted by the same man who became a monstrous knight, where you had an epic showdown where you almost died. Eventually, you were able to unite together, where Demonia was able to get O'Flanagan on his feet and help him launch into the sky to catch Orbweeb. Corwin was able to launch a superior Eldritch Blast towards the armored monstrosity, and Orbweeb was able to summon a goddess-like thunderstorm from her prayers, which was able to send the armored monstrosity flying into the horizon, and you have not seen him since. You were recovered by O'Flanagan after that same spell Orbweeb had casted turned on all of you and struck you with lightning and almost killed everybody. O'Flanagan survived and was able to drag you all to a nearby hut, where you met again Lyric the gardener, who helped nurse you back to health and sent you on your way. You guys eventually traveled further west towards these mountains, where you happened to find 2 giant spiders. You were able to fend off against these giant spiders, and in this bout, a couple of things happened. O'Flanagan was pinned against his will with some webs where he could barely move. Corwin almost died, or we ran away for a moment before returning and starts to question her morals on that. And Demonia was able to pull a sword from the stone that has seemed to be bothering her ever since. On top of that, it seemed that Corwin, during this bout, had actually gotten knocked out and seeming to have his imaginary best friend by the name of Norman take over his body and help fight against these spiders before he was also switched back out with Corwin. You guys never really pursued on what that was or why that happened, but that did happen. You guys eventually traveled further. You guys climbed the mountain, got to the peaky top, where you were confronted by Rothkin. Rothkin faced you guys down. You were able to kill him, and you were able to get inside the Dragonborn village, where you were finally able to meet Zekrom, deliver the egg, and finish your quest. Zekrom did reveal a good amount of information. He revealed that Rothkin was his son, that Zekrom is the son of Arceus. He revealed that Arceus was not a tyrant king like their realm believes, and that their realm was lied to after Kaz won the war. He also revealed that the Aarakocra are not extinct, and there is a village in the Dales Mountains, or the Dales Mountains. O'Flanagan did not hear this information, and it's up to you guys if you want to reveal that information to O'Flanagan. You guys were also offered to join the Dragon Order, but Zekrom wanted to see your guys' abilities first. The dragon egg did hatch where Bahamut was born, and did take a liking to Orbweeb, where he did fly over to Orbweeb, land on a table, and make a little interaction with her, while at the same time Demonia, O'Flanagan, and Corwin were fighting each other because Demonia had taken a bad drug dose and had started to see demons and her own party mates become monstrosities. You guys were able to survive that, and the next morning Demonia surprisingly enough, fought Zekrom in a fair joust, 1v1, non-lethal, just to see and estimate your guys' abilities and your democratic warrior of the party. During this bout, a bad interaction happened between Orbweeb and what seems to be a Reshiram Alliance member, who threatened Orbweeb, and then they launched a fireball on O'Flanagan, seeming to kill him in the process, where an all-out fight broke out with all the Dragonborn. Everybody almost died. Until the last moment, Bahamut flew in, and seeming this golden sphere just grew from him and covered the entire area. The battle after that ended pretty quickly. You guys found O'Flanagan's body, where he seemed to be indisposed and dead. During this time, you guys were, tearing up, getting ready to have a burial and drinks in his remembrance. And after that point, Bahamut flew in again, landed on O'Flanagan, and looked to Orbweeb, where Orbweeb seemed to be able to communicate to Bahamut mentally. Bahamut had seemed to I almost said respawn. Revive O'Flanagan. Revive O'Flanagan, to O'Flanagan's surprise, and shortly after, Bahamut did take off the skies to find his brother, so-and-so called Tiamat. You guys did not hear the Tiamat aspect. That was more of kind of like a end credits thing, for the viewership. But he did take off the skies to find his own journey, where you all were able to kind of come to the conclusion that Bahamut was now powerful and better off on his own than being entrusted into the wrong hands. Does anybody have any questions?
have the effects of us like running through Ornsall, have they been noticed, or are we still kind of like under the radar of what's going on in the world?
So some of these questions I will not be able to answer, just because they can be spoilers. So don't take it personally if you ask me a question and I say I can't answer that. But no, I can't answer that.
That's okay. Well, fuck you then. All right.
If you want to find out, I would say your best bet is just to ask around. Throw your name out there as people think about it. If people kind of go, huh? Then you're probably not well known. But I'd probably try doing that if you're somewhere where you've, had more of an impact. Like if you went back to the Waterfall Citadel, or if you went to Pelios, those would be good places to ask around. But the Dragonborn village, you pretty much just got here. But it is obvious to you that everybody at this Dragonborn village does know who you are, and they do see you as heroes in general.
Yeah, I was more asking just to make sure like we haven't made too much of a notice of us. Like we caused quite a stir in the Waterfall Citadel, and that's kind of the hub. So I wanted to make sure like that hadn't spread too much, because some of us are wanted.
yeah, that you don't know. Since you guys got the egg and you got to the Dragonborn village, it has been about a week and a half. Okay. So, yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? Or Preston, if you have any more questions?
I do. My Taco Bell just showed up, so I'm going to grab that.
Okay.
Fair enough. I can wait on my question then until he gets back.
He's gone. Ask away. Oh, well, yeah, he might want to know that information.
Yeah, just benefit the party.
I'll try to make that spiel rather short, but man, it's like even now I'm like
a lot of things have happened.
Yeah, it's like I still forgot a lot of stuff that I'm remembering right now. That I'm like, I should have mentioned that. So one more thing. I'm waiting for him to get his headset on. This is pretty important too. This was like a solid 3 or 4 episodes that I forgot to mention. Okay, so one thing I forgot to mention. On the way to Pelios, you guys had met Jats, the local tavern keep, where you had to run in. You had to figure out what was happening to his livestock. You had discovered that it was a bunch of wolves in a nearby den, who the wolves' alpha was actually a werewolf, where you guys ran away from the werewolf, and Orby was bit by said werewolf. You were able to bomb the cavern opening and trap the werewolf inside, and you have not seen the werewolf since. That is one thing I left out. That was like 2.5 episodes. So, Preston, what was your other question?
Is Steve something that, or a creature that's going to level up with us, or is he kind of like just a stationary regular cat?
He's more of a stationary regular cat. Yeah.
Fair enough.
We give him armor.
You could try to have some armor made for him, yeah.
Hell yeah, raise that AC for Steve.
If you can find, an artificer or some kind of inventor, or maybe a really skilled blacksmith, absolutely. You could weaponize the crap out of him.
Okay.
It's just how you go about it. If you roll well, if you find a good guy, you pay the right price.
Fair enough. Me and Natanya talked about if we could get more information on what we know so far about the cult of Vecna. So specifically, who we encountered at the older man's house. I can't remember if you went over that in your, I don't think you did in your...
I can repeat it again.
Recap.
If like,
because I know we've ran into 2 of them.
It was technically, you don't know how many you ran into for
That's
sure.
Fair.
You can make assumptions on who was who.
Okay.
But
yeah, I know I'm trying to ask this in a way that's not like, I guess who we've directly ran into. Because I know there was
To 100% confirmed, one individual said you have not seen the last of the cult of Vecna before he was quite literally exploded by a transmorphed orb weeb.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we met the Avatar of Greed, I think it was.
Yeah, I didn't know if anybody else was confirmed cult of Vecna, and that was more by...
Technically, no. Nobody else was confirmed cult of Vecna, but you do know that another individual, the Armored Monstrosity, called himself the Avatar of Greed.
Yeah, okay. Right.
And that he did mention that he was a servant, and a couple of other notes was that he was about 7'5", a giant man with a lot of armor and a really big sword that you almost couldn't pick up. But he seemed to have one glowing yellow eye and one regular human eye. But when he was extremely angry, they both turned yellow and they were kind of like pulsing light.
And he was after the egg, right?
After the egg, like when it hatched or before it hatched?
Before it hatched, like when when we were getting in that big fight.
Yeah.
Like he was after the egg, right?
He took place when you guys just left the Waterfall Citadel, prior to Pelios, prior to Jats. He just left, and he jumped you outside, about 100 feet outside the main gates. And that's where the battle took place. If that answers your question on that.
And then Natalia had some questions about, I did too, on kind of just for Corwin, like a general clarification of Corwin's backstory, because I know in this episode we want to work towards
figuring out more stuff about him.
Yeah.
Okay. So Preston, that's really up for you to answer.
I figured I didn't know
about a lot of your backstory, but you have not given everything as far as I know. So if you want to reiterate, just re-explain what you've already said, go for it.
If you want to ask your question, I can try and put some light on it.
I think they're just kind of looking for a general recap.
Yeah, just like a quick recap on like what's going on with Corwin, because I know
I think a good idea too would be a general recap for everyone. Just to help. I'll do Flanagan too last.
Sure. Okay, Corwin was half elf. His dad was human. Excuse me. Mom was elf. Lived in Eagle's Crest, which is pretty far south, right along a riverbed of the Waterfall Citadel.
Near Elven territory.
Long and skinny of it, his dad got really sick after his mom left. His dad was a really well-renowned artificer. He fixed a lot of stuff, and Corwin worked in the shop with him. But when his dad got sick, Corwin had to take over. Corwin tried a lot of different ways to try and help him. One day there was a strange person who came that promised that he could help, in a promise that he could get it if Corwin sold his soul. Corwin accepted, and in doing so he read this book. And this book opened up and it had all these tentacles and it ended up wrapping around him. Corwin was already a pretty hard person to look at, but after that point, he got pretty scarred. His skin went pale white. His eyes became really pale emerald. His hair went from a deep black to ice white. And when he left and went back to his home to try and, now that he had been given some abilities, went home and his father was already dead. He was then accused of murder of his father, for they did not recognize who Corwin was anymore. He was then set on fire, stoned, beaten as he ran away just into the forest. As far as Norman goes, he is a PTSD part of trying to help him have somewhat of good memories of where he grew up. Norman is a apparition that he believes is very real, that he uses as just an overall coping mechanism to all difficult things that he's ran into after his father's death.
So did Norman come into the picture after after Corwin opened the book, or after like the town like shunned him and burned him?
So Norman showed up after Corwin was trying to he was basically healing himself after being severely burned and beaten. And that's when Norman first appeared. But in Corwin's mind, Norman's been there his entire life.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Word.
Like falsified memories.
Yep. Yeah. Norman is that way of coping, just like because Corwin had it pretty hard to begin with. No one wanted to play with him as a kid because he wasn't good looking. He wasn't super athletic. He didn't really talk well. He didn't like crowds. His dad was well renowned, but
he was hot.
Yeah. No. And then
Yes.
Yet.
He's now well renowned.
Then maybe.
So, and we'll see.
Yeah, maybe.
But now
We'll find out.
he's got his deity that's speaking to his mind, who he hasn't yet to actually see, but it's just there, that is constantly wanting him to do things that are against his morals, but he's seen what this deity can do to provide overall protection for other people. Corwin's never been in the position to be able to protect those that he cares about. Now he is, so he's willing to do what it takes to keep those he sees close to him safe, whether that means corrupting his morals for that.
Right on. Solid.
Well, I can give a little backstory in my character too.
Go for it.
So Demonia Mortho is a runaway tiefling from a circus called the Night Ventures that her family ran. She grew up inside of it. She was put into the freak show at a young age, so one of her horns was ripped off. She's heavily scarred, battered. She dealt with that for years. And her parents told her if she ever left that she would be murdered, so she stayed out of fear. Her parents used the cover of Night Ventures to be bandits and thieves, so she spent her life helping her parents. Are you pausing me?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Contradiction. Didn't you say that your because I have plot. Didn't you say that your parents said they were your parents, but they're not your parents?
Yes, you're right.
Okay, I
Sorry.
just wanted to clarify
You're
that.
right. I was
That was
trying
something
to-
I remember
yeah,
you
I was-
specifically saying. So I was like, she doesn't.
Yeah,
That's not a
you're
secret.
correct.
So she said it. So I wanted to
Yeah,
make sure.
no, I did. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, so Demonia
you're all
was
good.
kidnapped as a child and brought into this. And she was told that these were her parents, but her actual parents, she knows nothing about. She just grew up in this circus. She was threatened with death if she left. And she was in it late into her teen years. And there was one night that her parents had brought a man into the show and then murdered him for his gold, a wealthy man. And Demonia witnessed it and decided that it was a good time to run because of the town that they were in. So she used the skills that she'd had from the circus, disguised herself as a man, and went under the name Demointhus, and ran into the village, into a tavern, which was actually her first location after leaving circus. And then she roped herself right into this.
So it was
So
pretty
she
much
is-
like jump like back to back.
It was basically, yeah, she left, ran. First place she got to was this tavern. And the idea of this adventure was beautiful for her because then she could get as far away as possible from what she was trying to get away from.
Yeah.
So Demonia originally started this just as a selfish need to get away from the life that she'd had. And now she's actually growing some camaraderie, which she's never had in her life before. So she's a little bit more inclined to stick around.
I like it. Is there anything else you want to include?
I actually just pulled up my backstory. Let me see if I'm missing anything. She loves
Remember,
the loot.
A Demonia went by Demointhus when you
Yes,
first got
I'd
away
mentioned
for
that.
a alias, yeah.
Yeah, she went by Demointhus just from her experiences in the circus, dressing up. She had a really good idea of how to disguise herself, especially as a tiefling with one horn. She knew she would stand out, so she did a lot to disguise herself in that way, including her name and gender. And it worked for a while.
I would say it worked, period, because you
Okay,
were
it
the one
worked.
who
I'm the
willingly, you willingly
Admitted
dropped
it.
the alias to your friends, but
That's
I remember
true.
you said you wanted to keep the alias up when you were like in big cities or big villages, things like
So it's
that.
working out pretty well for her as a character. Besides like her party mates.
Yeah. Okay. Is that everything?
Yes.
Did you want to go next, Natanya, or do you want me to go?
I can go next.
Okay.
Miss Orbweeb's story isn't anything too crazy. She was her parents lost her when she was just a wee little thing. She was so small. They couldn't keep track. They lost her while traveling between villages. So she grew up in the forest and was raised by the animals and Maliki. And Maliki was like a mother figure to her, and Orbweeb never really understood what Maliki was, and realized, and the way she would explain it to Orbweeb was she was just there as a protector of the forest and the animals, and I was a part of the forest and I was part of the animals, so she had to take care of me, keep me safe, along with a lot of the other animals in the forest that kind of raised Orbweeb. As she got older, she started traveling to nearby villages where she kind of socialized a little bit and like learned language and talked to people, and so she's not totally off her rocker. And she knew that eventually, reaching into adulthood, Maliki would no longer be able to show herself to Orbweeb, and it was very well understood between the two that Orbweeb was going to have to gain some sort of independence as she got older. So around that time, she continued to travel further north towards the bigger villages like the Waterfall Citadel, and coming across to one of the villages, she heard a bunch of bugs screaming and went and rescued them all. They were all trapped in enclosures and she could hear their screams. So she went and saved them all and released them and became a felon. So the whole village was after her after that, because it wasn't a big village and they needed the bugs for whatever reason. So she was on the run and found herself in a bar where she met Prometheus. Prometheus?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I was really second guessing myself there for a second. Where she met Prometheus and figured, hey, I have to get away from here anyway, so onward I go. And I had to gain some sort of independence, so I figured it was a perfect opportunity to venture out into the real world.
And your roach. You have a little cockroach.
And my little roach. Oh, my cockroach.
Yeah.
One of the bugs I saved.
Meek hasn't had a whole lot of screen time, unfortunately.
Yeah, because here's the thing, Meek doesn't need it. He's more of an emotional support for Orbweeb and Orbweeb only.
Something I keep forgetting to say actually is you're more than welcome to like control Meek. For example, I control Steve,
doesn't do anything.
right? Yeah, but you can say things like, I want to walk up to the bartender and like tell him to go F himself, and as I do, I want Meek to like run up my shoulder and kind of like lean off and kind of like bare his antennas towards the bartender.
Yo, menacing.
Like, you can do things like that. That's like, if you want to do that, go for it. You know.
Honestly,
like,
I forget he's there too. So
thing is, I have so much going on up here. I don't have enough CPU power for my brain to like make sure I got Meek also in there with Steve and O'Flynnigan and the NPCs.
Fine.
So
he's there. We all know he's there, and
yeah,
he doesn't have to do much. He's mostly just here for a good time. What's up?
Check your phone.
All right.
oh, you're in trouble.
There may be some T-Bell in your future, that's all.
Nice.
Cool.
That's the best thing I could have opened my phone to.
Okay, so is that everything? Before I head off into O'Flynnigan's?
So we're all outlaws and felons. That's great.
Yeah, you're all outlaws and felons. It seems like you've all had back-to-back. Like, you went from this to the adventure like that. Like, there was no break.
Des Moines is also really tall. I forgot to mention that. So
yeah,
she
isn't
pulls off
Des Moines like 6'1"?
She's like 6'2". Yeah, so she's
6'2".
really tall for a woman.
Very
anyways.
short, and it has caused problems.
Yeah, it helped Des Moines disguise.
How
It does
tall
not
is
help
Corwin?
you in any way.
Corwin's 5'10".
Okay,
Like
so
regular height.
I'm
Des
taller
Moines
than
and
all of
Flanagan are like almost the same height. I think if Flanagan's 6'4", because Eric Cooper are just naturally really tall.
Yeah, they're just tall.
Oh, Orbweave is also a half elf, but she's still very short for being a half elf.
Yes.
Yeah, she really got that human side.
Oh no, Corwin is 6'1", but he weighs 160 pounds.
So he's
He's
a
like
skinny
5'10",
6'1".
but he thinks he's 6'1", or
Yeah, he thinks he's small, but he's actually tall. But he thinks he's much shorter.
Okay.
But little Orbweave is just surrounded by
giants.
By fucking giants. Like,
Yeah.
imagine being like 4'10" and just consistently hanging out with people that are like above 6 feet tall.
Well, fun fact, NPC that Corwin met last episode or two, Micah, he's 7'4".
Hey, he's a big motherfucker.
He's a tower. Like, if Orbeeb looked up, be doing this. Like, straight up.
Literally. Hey there.
Okay, so Flanagan. You guys actually don't know much about Flanagan's past directly. You do know that when he was 12 years old, his tribe, per se, was wiped out by Dragonborn, where he ran away and eventually, along his journey, found himself in the Waterfall Citadel. In the Waterfall Citadel, Flanagan kind of learned his way in the streets, learned how to steal, how to survive, and whatnot. Eventually, he grew up, and right around the time of 18 years old, he spent a lot of time studying, reading. He actually taught himself how to read in the Waterfall Citadel. And in doing so, this was mentioned in the prologue, not in the main series, but in the prologue, it was mentioned that he tried to become a knight in the Waterfall Citadel, and he was rejected. After that point, shortly later, he met you guys when he broke you out of the jail cells and joined you guys on your quest. But beyond that, besides his race's extinction, besides being on his own since the age of 12 years old, you guys almost know nothing about him besides what you have seen along your journey so far. So.
all right.
I want to ask O'Flanagan if he's ever been in love.
Did you guys have any more questions?
Has O'Flanagan ever been in love?
That's something you gotta ask O'Flanagan.
Okay.
That's something you gotta ask O'Flanagan. But yeah. Any other questions?
Oh shoot. One of the steps that we put in for Corwin, when he hits that 15 HP, I forgot about that. Is that something that you still want to keep implementing?
No.
Okay, because
No.
I forgot.
We haven't been doing it, so no.
Okay.
No.
Oh, worth it.
Too much CPU power.
Gotta upgrade that.
I know,
Drink
it's
some
bad.
juice or something.
It's bad. Anything else? Seriously, even if you think it's dumb, ask away. Now's the time to remember and get your, to jog your memory to figure out, even if it's something stupid like, why do we meet so-and-so, or where is so-and-so, did he die, is he not dead, what happened to this guy, where's this item, when was the last time we seen this, you know, are we near the Waterfall Citadel, like, even little things like that, feel free to ask.
Dude, what all do we know about the 3 keys of heaven?
3 keys of heaven, that's a good question. So you heard that there is possibly, or metaphorically, 3 keys to heaven that can open the gates and, quote for quote, ascend someone upward. You briefly, only Orbweeb heard this, briefly mentioned by Saros at the club where you guys were being celebrated. Saros was really drunk, and he said that he tried to find one of the keys to heaven, which was a sword. Him and his crew went to go try to get this sword, and it was being protected by a snow abomination. He did mention that this sword was called the Sword of Jupiter, which was dropped by the god Jupiter down to the realm, and it is protected by a snow beast. The snow beast killed his clansmen, and he ran away, and returned to his village in shame, and hasn't gone in battle since. Good question.
That's a good question.
And that's the only key that we know about.
That is the only key you guys know about.
Okay.
Do we have the Necronomicon, or is that just something that was mentioned?
The Necronomicon was briefly mentioned by one of the shopkeepers in Pelios, who offered a hefty penny if you had it in your inventory.
That's right. Okay. I got the 2 campaigns, and we're like, do we have it right now? We had it last time.
Last campaign you did,
We had it last
yeah.
time.
I had it last time.
Yeah.
I actually still have the book.
Hell yeah.
Drasilia Dotska.
Drasilia Dotska.
Yep. Drasilia Dotska had it.
The fucking
Yes, sir.
Avatar.
She's the baddest.
She was fucking cool.
I always love the anybody watching, this is from a previous campaign, this is not canon to this current campaign, but I always liked how in the ending in Drasilia I had the Avatar theme playing in the background when Drasilia died, and she
It was
descended to the underworld and turned into the Avatar and fought Typhon hand to hand, and they just both killed each other in the process.
dude, I was shedding tears on the way home, dude. I was like, that was beautiful.
It was beautiful, man. I was thinking about it the next day. I was like, damn, really, I did myself.
I killed that shit.
Anything else?
Pat on the back for you, DM.
Thanks. Couldn't do without you guys.
That's true.
It is
That's a
very
good
true.
point. You're right. You need somebody.
Need someone to tell the story to.
Yeah. Collaboration, it's a collaborative story. I just lay out the framework.
How many pets would you say we're allowed to have?
As many as you want.
Too many pets.
If it's
For
too many,
real?
I'm gonna start killing things off. But I mean, theoretically, as many as you want. Just don't be surprised if there's 2 or 3 episodes where I don't mention 1 or 2 of them at all.
Is there limitations on what we can try and befriend?
Same.
No. You can literally
So if
try
I'm
to befriend
run up-
anything.
I run up to a polar bear. I can
Yeah.
befriend a polar bear.
You
Hell
can
yeah.
try. You can
I
try.
might die.
You could get attacked, but you can try. But yeah. I try to encourage, in this campaign, you guys can quite literally, do whatever you want. I got contingency plans for everything. So if you want to say, fuck you ain't your main story, I'm going to go and be a sheep herder or something. I don't know. You can. I might kill you off, but you can. Or I might just say, well, that's the end of this story, and now we're going to do the sequel, where we go back onto the main story.
You're like, and they're gonna make a new character.
Yeah, that's the end of the story. These guys live happily ever
Farm
after.
sheep now. I don't.
Fun fact, I actually had an ending written up for the Dragonborn village once you guys delivered the egg. If you all just kind of decided that your characters were done, they don't want to venture anymore, they think that was it. I had a story written up for what happens next in the storyline, and how Corwin and Demonia and Orweeb and Flanagan kind of leave that story. So
Yeah,
I
thought about that.
I got plans for everything.
Or Weeb. I kind of thought about that, but she's gonna stick with it.
Yeah. At some point, if you think your character is wouldn't continue the story, they've been through too much, they don't want to do this anymore, that's fine. You can always we can always have a discussion off screen, say, hey, I think as part of my character, I don't think they would continue this. I think it's time to introduce somebody else, somebody new, who would. I can always write something up. Try to give me a heads up. Don't just be like, all right, I'm done. My character decides they're going to go home and I'm done.
During stream, just yeah, he walks away. We're in the middle of a battle. Yeah, he walks away.
He walks
And
away.
He walks away.
I'll work with it, but you're not going to be playing for the rest of the session. I'm okay, he leaves. We'll figure out a new character next episode. But, I got plans for everything. So, you can literally do whatever you want. Any other questions?
I think so.
Do you have any questions for us?
No, not really. My question is if you guys have other questions. That's want to make sure you guys are caught up, everything makes sense, There's no holes in the lore or the plot or characters that just kind of don't make sense or are confusing, anything like that.
I think we're good.
Annika?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, that's that. That's the end of our recap, and we can jump into the next session.